All right, everyone. So please go learn the science of systems. You won't regret it. It's for you. I hope you take advantage of it. We're not here to force anyone into this, but it will profoundly change your life. You will learn the foundations of systems course, but most important, you're going to learn how to think, not what to think. And that's what the world needs. So by the way, every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m., every Thursdays, everyone's invited. We do an open house. You can directly interact with me, and I invite all of you to come to learn more about the system, the science of systems. Anyway, let me talk about this. Today, we're going to really talk about, again, this is the beginning of our gut and brain health series, part of our CytoSolve Open Science project. It's brought to you by you. We want to thank CytoSolve for helping us do the work and the contributions all of you guys have made. And we hope you continue to make. We need the support. But let me, first of all, talk to you a little bit about this. One of the things that our Open Science project is dedicated to fight is really against the real racism. You hear about the word racism, and typically it's the liberal elites who talk about racism, but they never talk about the real racism. Let me tell you what the real racism is. The real racism is putting down some of the amazing indigenous medicines, the traditional medicines that have existed for 30, 40,000 years. And by people, maybe they don't look like us, they look different, maybe they looked quote unquote primitive. And this racism is at the heart of why the big establishment organizations, which are, by the way, filled by these elitists who talk about diversity. It's fascinating. You go to many of the big pharma guys' websites, they'll talk about diversity. They'll talk about wanting to help the Native Americans or wanting to help the dark people. But yet those companies hate the fact that when you talk about herbs and supplements and indigenous medicines, they don't want anyone to talk about that, right? They want to talk about synthetic drugs. So that's why I want to bring you up to that. Our movement, Truth, Freedom, and Health, with the support of CytoSolve, is dedicated to truly fight the real racism brought to you by Big Pharma. So that's the first point as we talk about this. The second point is that we are dedicated to eliminating animal testing. You know, even the FDA at one of the conferences I was at recognizes that when pharmaceutical companies do testing on animals or cosmetic companies, it's absolutely unnecessary. The animal chemistries are so different, and there's no reason to put animals through this cruelty. In fact, the reality is it says the 90% of NIH animal experiments are going nowhere. So they just kill these poor animals. I'm a big animal lover. Even if I weren't, I don't think it's necessary to do any of this just from the physics and the chemistry. And the results do not necessarily translate to humans. And look at this. You can see even Americans are divided whether animals should be used in scientific research. But more importantly, from a science perspective, there's no reason to do animal testing. So that's the second reason our CytoSolve Open Science project exists. It's first, as you shared here, it's to really fight against the real racism against all the stuff that Big Pharma does against indigenous medicines, and also to stop and eliminate animal testing. The third is, if you look at the entire pharmaceutical development model, it takes 13 years for them to come up with a drug. And the drug, we spend $5 billion, right? And the drug doesn't even work. It only works for 10% of the group. And there's no way to personalize this. And it's a single molecule and has lots and lots of side effects. And you can see, so it's wasteful, time, money, et cetera. And you can see here, this graph, pharma companies spend more and more money on R&D using this very archaic process. And they're, in fact, getting less and less drugs even approved. So it's a really effed up process. And the reason it's so screwed up is because on top of it, the academic research is a blind leading the blind. So if this elephant, for example, represents some disease like the brain, or not the disease, but some system like the brain or Alzheimer's, the scientists in all these institutions are incentivized just to study a little piece of the puzzle. So it's like almost they're like blind men touching the different parts of the elephant, and each guy has his own blinded view of reality. And if they ever even got together, you'd get this crazy looking picture of the reality. People would think that the tusk of the elephant was a spear. They would think the ears were a fan. So this is what is going on in science. You have academic guys studying pieces, and that's called reductionism. That's the next thing we want to be able to expose and stop with CytoSolve. And then finally, there's an incestuous web of science. And look at what goes on here. I want everyone to really take some notes and understand this. This is why scientific research is not science by the people for the people. It's science by the few for the few to make a bunch of money and keep the science by the few for the few going. This is why that Alzheimer's nonsense that came out for 16 years, the research group, this guy bullshitted the research. He made up research, which resulted in billions of dollars going into an Alzheimer's area, which was complete nonsense. And think about this. These are the big guys at Harvard and all these big schools, just fully bullshitting people day in and day out. How do they do this? This is the incestuous in science. They got, by the way, so the same guy who's deciding where funds to go, let's say for Alzheimer's, sits on the NIH review board. That same guy is on the scientific advisory board of some big pharma company. The same guy is also an editor of a journal for the major journal publications, let's say in Alzheimer's, and he's also the department head in Alzheimer's, you see? And this is the incestuousness. So if you are a researcher and you have some brilliant idea or you have data that says, oh, these herbs can solve Alzheimer's and I have data, they're going to call you a snake oil salesman. They won't even give you the opportunity for your research light to come out, but they will do this incestuous web.